Hi everyone, today I just want to share the status of my right eye. Now this is something I've spoken about a few times already, but this one is just more of a public service announcement in case it becomes relevant to people that bump into similar very odd situations or medical professionals that just need an anecdotal report of what happens to someone's eye in this situation. The bottom line is that after suffering from corneal neuralgia as a result of a abrasion to the cornea, my right eye now seems to be permanently more sensitive than the left eye, not in terms of sensation, but in terms of reaction to foreign bodies. Not just foreign bodies, but specific types of foreign bodies. What I mean by that now is that while I finally reached a point where most of my day-to-day life can feel perfectly normal, there are some very specific circumstances where I'm sitting doing my work and then the right eye will start to feel irritated when I close the lid and on the inner side, and I can feel that increasing and increasing over time. It's not present with the eye open, then like an hour will go by and I'll notice that when I close it, it's stronger than before. The reason that happens is because at some point a few hours earlier, something got into the eye. Not an actual foreign body, but it could just be a particle. So for example, sometimes when I'm hugging my dogs and like they're licking my face and stuff, I think it may be the case that like a saliva particle of some kind gets into the eye space and that triggers an immune reaction. This doesn't happen with the left eye. It's only happening with the right eye since this corneal scratch. And I think a part of the reason for it is because when the nerves get damaged and they do this weird branching thing when they heal, keep in mind I'm not an expert about this, but I think it increases the density of immune specific cells and messengers. And that what's happening now is that when seemingly inconspicuous things happen and get into the eye space, there is a stronger immunological reaction in the eye. And it's not necessarily very visible or obvious. For example, my eye doesn't go massively red and bloodshot and inflamed and stuff like that, but the sensation is definitely there. Weirdly, the thing that seems to be effective against it is not eye drops. Actually, this is an interesting thing. Again, hyaluronic acid for me is no longer an inert thing to take. It may have never been the case, but using it in my left eye seems to be fine. Using it in my right eye seems to be fine only briefly until several hours later when this irritation pain will come back again. So on days when I've been particularly careful and done things by the books, not been in any situations that would increase irritation, hyaluronic acid does cause an irritation response. And I think it's my immune system having a go at it, which is weird, right? And yes, this happens in the case of sterile containers for these as well. So I'll open a new one, then try the drops, and the eye becomes irritated later on. It also seems to be the case, and this is again weirder, that on sterile days, sometimes if I use the drops in the left eye, the right eye will have a reaction later on. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe there's something being shared fluid-wise in the system, but my lingering symptoms massively and noticeably in my data improved when I stopped using hyaluronic acid. Basically, the point is if I put anything in the right eye, it becomes more irritated, but it doesn't happen with the left eye. And this has only been since that abrasion early in the year. Now, I've done a lot of testing with this, and it's also a bit annoying not being able to use hyaluronic acid drops anymore. Well, I can in an emergency because I clean my eyes quite a lot now since the abrasion. And something that happens quite often is a lash will become detached and then adhered to the eye. And then as I blink, it moves around. And you can sometimes feel that as a mild foreign body. I think probably a lot of people have it happen without even noticing. But I came up with a technique of detecting foreign bodies in my eye entirely by myself, by the way. I'm very proud about this, but maybe other people do this. I have to look at the eye in the mirror and I move a light around like parallax. And what I'm looking for is on the iris, there will be a shadow. And it looks a bit like if you've got like a cylindrical cup like this and if you've got water on it, and if there's a bubble on the top of the water, if you look in at the base of the cup, you will see a shadow of the bubble. And it looks a bit like that as you kind of rotate the light around the iris. So sometimes I'll see a shadow on the iris and that will key me into the fact that there's a foreign body floating on the surface. And sometimes it can be like a tiny, tiny baby lash or a piece of dust. And I came up with a technique to efficiently remove these, which is, say, for example, I take the hyaluronic acid drops, and I'm not going to do this, but you pull the eyelid down and I put 3 in, so 1, 2, 3, and then I tilt my head so that it drains inwards. And then I move my eye so that the eye kind of looks down into the highest volume of the drops, and I kind of just move it around to kind of like wash it with the hope that it collects the volume. And then I blink, 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 blink. And what it does is it drains out those 3 drops into the inner eye, and then it runs down the nose. And then I'll just pick it up down here with a tissue. That was my super fast way for removing them. Beforehand, what I would do is I would put a few drops in, hold the lid down, and then try and blink until the lash or debris would get low into the pocket. And then after I'd washed my hands, I'd try and remove it with a finger, which did work, but it was a little bit inconsistent. This irrigation method, I call it, is very fast and convenient. But again, hyaluronic acid is irritating for me now in the right eye. So I've started doing what they recommend you don't do, which is using water from my sink. Whenever I get a foreign body adhered onto my cornea now and I'm blinking it around, I will literally go in under the sink. I'll collect a bit of water kind of in my hand and ideally have it so it's not moving, so it's not abrasive with its motion. And then I'll kind of tilt in a way where it's a pocket in my hand. I open my eye so that the water is on the eye, and then I blink as I kind of just let it fall inwards. So it's slowly just moving across the eye. And that is really effective for removing foreign bodies as well. But you do have to be careful with that. But since doing that, instead of using hyaluronic acid, again, my symptoms have massively improved. But every ophthalmologist will tell you not to use like sink water to wash out your eye. But it seems that in my case, it's way better. I should also note that now, since moving here, I'm doing that with partially softened water. And it's probably not safe to do if you don't know much about your water source, especially if your water is prone to getting bits in it. I used to use eye wipes during the height of my issue because that's just what people recommended. I try and avoid that now, although sometimes they're useful. So my kind of daily routine looks like this. I wake up. Soon after waking up, I go to my sink. I make sure it's on warm water, not too hot, ideally not too cold. I bend down. I gather water in that one hand to submerge the closed eye in like a little bath of water. And then I wipe as the water's kind of flowing into my hand. I rub along the bottom of the eye and then the top of the eye and generally around. So it's just like a water rinse. Sometimes I do the forehead and I do the same with the left eye as well. So rub water very lightly, lower lid, upper lid, inner and around. This is just to clean the space in the case of like blepharitis, but also just to rinse away loose irritants that the immune system might have a go at that may be in the space. Also, if I'm with the dogs and then if they get close up to the face, then I'll do that as well, just in case there's anything new. If I'm getting about my day at work and if I notice that I'm feeling some kind of irritation kick up, I will then go back to the sink and then just do it for that eye that's being irritated. Usually the right one, right? It can happen with the left one as well, but the right one is the one that's having most of the problem. And interestingly, this is what I noticed. If irritation's kicking up, just doing a light eye rinse. So this is not with the eye open this time. That's only if I'm having a foreign body. But if I'm doing a light eye rinse, then that tends to solve the issue. And the irritation will either stabilize instead of getting worse or go down. The longer I leave it to irritate, the longer it takes for it to reduce after the fact. The only time I would use eye wipes now is if there is debris around the eye, like blepharitis, like sleep, which doesn't actually, interestingly, contribute to my irritation pain. It seems like debris around the eyelids wasn't actually ever involved in the pain. It doesn't actually trigger my irritation. It's external things that do it, which is a bit counterproductive. So sometimes I do end up with a situation where there's debris around my lid, right? And it may just be sleep or something else. And that keeps getting into the eye and I keep feeling a foreign body feeling. That doesn't cause the irritation itself, but that gets annoying because I have to keep rinsing it out. So that's when I would use eye wipes to try and clear debris from the space. And then always after wiping the eye, do another complete bath around there to try and wash irritants away. So that's been the solution for me now. My right eye is hypersensitive to external irritants getting in. Again, not stuff like pollen. Pollen doesn't do anything. Well, that seems to be true. I guess I'll do more testing as the seasons come and go. And it should be stated that early on in the corneal neuralgia issue, I had a whole bunch of complex symptoms that this would never fix, but they were definitely more related to nerve pain, spiky nerve pain, temperature changes where there weren't any, and burning that would move around different points. You can learn more about that in the other videos I've done about it, but that was solved by a treatment of steroid on the eye over the course of a few months. It took about 6 months from the issue appearing to the issue mostly resolving those nerve-related issues, and then everything afterwards is just lingering burning from hypersensitivity to irritations that we've been speaking about now. Another possible contributing factor is that things have also been getting better over time since we've been in this house, and I've been swimming quite a lot as well. Maybe not every day, but we've got a personal private chlorine pool. So if there was a contributing factor somewhere on the skin, which I've tried investigating in the past, again, I did cultures and microscopy, then found that the right side of the body had a stronger presence of flora, very weirdly. I could draw like a heat map from the right side of the face. Then maybe the chlorine is also a contributing factor in suppressing environmental irritants that may be present on the body. But yeah, I won't do many more videos like this, but I just wanted to put it out there that that's a thing, that I'm now in a state with the eye that things are mostly under control, but there are these weird flare-ups that I manage by not actually using the recommended things to manage them, just water. This would not have helped early on in the issue, but it is sensible for me now to go against the ophthalmic recommendation to not use water to irrigate the eye. But there have also been weird things where the recommendations from ophthalmologists are just wrong for me. So, for example, things like ointments like Hyalonite are really bad for me to use. People take them like before they go to bed to keep their eye, moisturized during the night in case it gets dry. I have a reaction to that. I don't know what it is. I think it might be the lanolin, which is like an organic compound in it, derived from wool, I think. I think lanolin is in hyaluronate, but I woke up and I had just like a massive pain reaction to it, and it took hours to get rid of. Also, chloramphenicol ointment, I have a reaction to that as well. Like I said, these are weird things that, doctors and ophthalmologists will prescribe these ointments because they're seemingly inert for the eye generally across the board. I don't know why. I have a reaction to everything. Hyaluronic acid, paraffin ointments with lanolin in them. Every possible passively inert thing that can treat the eye, this one reacts to. I don't know why. I'm just putting it out there that that's a thing now. And that now I'm in a point in that recovery process where the best thing to do is nothing or just add water. So yeah, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.